Hello, Cindy and I are going to talk to you about farm country. We both were raised on farms. What was your farm? A grain farm or a cattle farm?
Well, it was mostly dairy, but some grain too.
Oh, is that so? I know that you milked a lot of cows, but this here particular farm country shows hay country and grain country, etc. See, there's a truck. See all those windrows there? Did you windrow, did they swath grain on your farm?
Oh yeah, we did that too. Yep.
Did you ever get to shovel any grain?
Oh yeah, I did a little bit of that. I got to shovel a lot down into the stanchions where the dairy cows, they would eat when they
Look,
came.
there's a grain elevator. Do you have a grain elevator in the town where you were born?
Oh yeah. In fact, it burned down one winter, and my dad walked a mile into town into blizzard, which scared me, but he made it there and made it back safely.
I see here that they bale hay in the ditches. That's kind of what some of the farmers do. They actually cut the hay and bale it in the ditches and use it for their cattle. That saves the government from having to cut those ditches, and the farmers get the hay out of it too. So you fed dairy cattle, huh? So that's what you did. Did you ever get to milk them by hand?
I am thankful that I did not.
You never milked cows by hand? Do you think
No, but I can do it.
you
surely
can milk a cow? You
Oh
sure?
yes, and when we homeschooled our children, that was one of their subjects, learning to milk cows by hand.
I remember that they had a hard time getting some milk out.
They did. We went to our neighbors who are expert at it and watched them as they milked and participated some, which they enjoyed our lack of skill, I'm sure.
So you taught your children how to milk a cow. That might be important someday when we have to go out and get our own milk. I see now that the countryside is changing a little bit from the grain and cattle country, and we're getting more into cattle country, and some villages here are coming along. And this is quite the expansive. You can see how wide the sky is and how big the ditches are. You can see a long, long ways in Alberta. How far can you see?
Long ways. It reminds me a lot of Montana, and this is the part of Alberta that is not far from Montana. In fact, we're heading towards Montana as we ride.
I see that we're going to be coming up in some villages pretty soon, but this looks kind of like pasture land almost, with wide expanses of fences and stuff like that where cattle are probably raised. There's some more windrowing, so that's probably the grain area where the combining is done. I'll bet you Alberta produces a lot of grain and feed for cattle, and probably a lot of wheat, the way it looks from what I can see. What do you think, Cindy?
I'm sure they do. A lot different from Alaska. We could not find a farm there with the exception of a muskox farm. They just do not do that in Alaska.
They have some farms in the center of Alaska, but they're not as widespread as this. It's hard, like my dad used to say, it's hard to farm those mountains. There's no place you can put a plow in going up and down those hills. So now here's the villages that we passed as we drove on our way, and you can see some of them as we're driving along. And again, more hay, those big bales. I know one thing, a lot of farmers were glad when those big bales came in because they didn't have to lift them anymore, they had to use equipment. Do you have big bales on your farm?
Oh yes, we did. That was after I left home though. We baled the square bales when I was young and at home.
Did you lift square bales?
Oh yes, rectangles you would say. And yep, I sure did. I lifted my share of them. And by the way, when I was pushing that grain down into the stanchions where the dairy cows were milked, that was a hot job in the summer. It was over 100 degrees up above in the loft above those stanchions where the grain was for the cows.
I still think they call those square bales there, Cindy.
Okay, I'll stand corrected.
No, you won't stand because you're sitting right here doing this recording with me. How can you stand corrected when you're sitting?
Let's go on. Let's not get stuck there.
Okay, so here we come into the next part of our journey, which we'll talk a little bit as we drive along. So come with us now as we drive. Well, now we are approaching the United States. In fact, we're about 20 miles from the border. You can see some of the hills coming up. We'll be approaching the glacier area in Montana when we actually get into the United States. So how does it feel, Cindy, to be coming closer to the United States?
Hooray! I'm glad.
What are you...
Although we weren't in Canada as long, going toward home as we were when we entered and we're heading towards Alaska. That got really long.
So you are looking forward to coming back in the United States. Mm-hmm. What's the best thing, since this is a Canadian video, we really like Canada also, but what is special about the United States?
My cell phone. I can use my cell phone. Hooray, hooray. It is way too expensive to use it in Canada if I do have reception, which a lot of times I did not. So I am so glad. I like to be in communication with my family.
Look at that there, mountains, the mountain scenery that's starting to develop. I can see some of the hills out there, and I see that one square area developing. And we are definitely getting into more hill type of country and more rugged scenery. This is going to be quite a change from the flat grain fields of Alberta. What do you think of it?
Yes, we will. I do get interested in hills. I lived in the Red River Valley, flat, like Alberta was earlier. And I've always been intrigued by hills and especially by mountains.
So you like these mountains. I see that this fence line here, so that must mean this is cattle country too. In fact, I'll bet you we'll see some cattle coming up here in the next few videos as we're coming closer to the United States. Look at those clouds. Hey, are those cattle out there? Do you see any cattle out there?
Hey, you're right. There they are.
Wow. I don't see any bear mixed in with them. One place we traveled, I saw some bear mixed in with the cattle. A black bear, actually, and they had black Angus cattle mixed with a black bear.
I remember, you told me about it, I didn't see him, but wasn't he looking down from the top of a hill onto the cattle and the...
Yeah, below? He was. He was walking up above them and looking down. I don't know if he decided to go down to the cattle or not, but I'm sure the cattle wouldn't like it too much if he bothered them.
I wouldn't think so.
Look at there. Now we're making a straight beeline for the United States. But, again, I must say, we have enjoyed Canada. Canada is special, and Canada has some special things that we really liked. Especially, I like the Yukon. But this is our traveling that's ending the Canada part of our trip. What do you say there, Cindy, about the Canada part of our trip that is now ending?
It got real interesting when we missed our turnoff to the south that we were going to take to head towards the U.S., and we ended up in the middle of Calgary, and I was driving.
Well, here we are now. We're coming up to the border crossing, and we're approaching some of the last particular things, and now you can see the border crossing and the U.S. border crossing coming. So here we go. We will shortly be entering the United States. Thanks for driving along with us, and thank you for this trip. See you on the next trip. Bye for now.